When buying or selling your home, you need to feel protected. Realtor Mike Burgoyne not only looks out for your interests, but as a St. Louis area police officer will make sure you feel safe and well-informed with every decision. Email mike@strikewithmike.com and start the process today. That's mike@strikewithmike.com. A proven winner on the hockey rink, Joe Wolf knows what it takes to be the best. That's why he has the best rates in the area and only has rave reviews of his work with Wolf Power Washing. Get that siding back to its original color with Joe. Call him at 314-420-5434. That's 314-420-5434. Well, it's the offseason, and this is Let's Go Blues Radio. This is franchise episode number 427 all-time, and we are in the midst of episode 30 of season 13. I'm your host, Jeff Ponder. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by Mike Burgoyne of Real Brokerage Realty. Contact Mike at mike@strikewithmike.com or call him at 314-753-4060 and get started selling your current home or buying your new home today. And welcome to Wolf Power Washing. If you're in the St. Louis area and need the services of a professional power washer, Joe Wolf is your guy. Call him at 314-420-5434 and get the best prices in the area. This is franchise episode number 461 all time. On today's show, I give you my thoughts on the Blues official coaching hire, and we bring in friend of the show, Vanessa Graf, who has a prospect report for us. All that and more on this scintillating episode of Let's Go Blues Radio. Here we are officially in the midst of our summer shows. We did our Mystery Hockey Theater to kick it off last week and exercise some demons with the Steve Yzerman goal. And we are here today to kind of kick off the actual interview parts of the summer. So, again, if you're new to the show or if you have missed a couple episodes, we've got a couple things lined up for this summer. Obviously, big news. We'll do our typical live shows. But, and I think if there was an outside coaching hire, we probably would have had a show this week like that. But with this, it just feels like, kind of what are we going to say outside of what I'll say here in a little bit about it. But yeah, we are going to be doing some influencers. Will come on and talk, hockey influencers on social media. We're going to have Bill and I are going to be working on getting him back on the hockey rink. So we'll be chronicling some of that. And that should be a lot of fun because I got a new GoPro that I'm excited to use. And I think that this is just going to be a fun summer of different stuff that we're going to do. Speaking of fun stuff, if you're interested in the Puck Podcast, if you want to hear anything about anything that's gone on in the NHL playoffs, coaching hires, coaching fires, any other news around hockey, I have been a part of that show now. So last week I filled in for Doug. I'm back this week, and I'm back again next week to fill in for their co-host Doug. So me and Eddie are holding down the fort at the Puck Podcast. So if you want to hear me talk about, hockey in general, NHL in general, make sure you go over there, check out that show. We're talking NHL playoffs. Always fun to be talking about that, even when my boys aren't in it. So make sure you check that out. Getting into the meat of the show, the Blues did make some big news yesterday. They officially hired Drew Bannister as their head coach of the Blues, so they removed the interim tag. 2-year extension for Bannister, 54 games, 30-19-5 record for 65 points last year. That was the 12th best win percentage in that time frame in the NHL, so pretty solid work by Drew Bannister. In my opinion, and if you watch the postseason presser with Doug Armstrong, he made a comment that there was some guys he wanted to talk to, but some of them are still playing right now. He called that out, and I thought that whoever lost the Maple Leafs Bruins series would get fired, and that coach would become the head coach of the St. Louis Blues. I think I was only right on that if Boston lost. I do think Jim Montgomery was Armstrong's guy. He wanted to bring him back if he got fired in Boston, if Boston would have lost Game 7. So I do think that was kind of the hope that Armstrong had, and so that didn't happen. So I think that was when he said, okay, we're going to stick with Bannister. He's my number 2 guy. And I'm okay with that. I know if you pay attention to social media, there's a lot of people that are not okay with it. They thought this was just the cheap hire, the save money hire. I disagree. I mean, yes, he probably did come cheaper than I'm trying to think of anyone who's available right now. Dave Haxtell, I don't know. Whoever you were thinking about hiring, he probably did come cheaper. He's already with the organization, and obviously a first-time NHL head coach last season as an interim. But that's not why I think they hired him. I think they hired him because they really, Armstrong at least, and the brain trust that is behind Armstrong, I think they think he really is the best guy for the job. And I think I agree. Again, if you don't get Jim Montgomery, which I just think he's a great coach, and we all saw it here in St. Louis as an assistant. But yeah, I think Bannister did a great job with this group, and I think my thought on it is that if he's he knows the team, he knows the people on the team, obviously the staff, the team down in Springfield as well, and I think he's got a good gauge on what this team is, what they need, who they are. And I think it's just a good hire to keep him around. It's only a 2-year deal, too. It's not like you signed him to a 6-year contract. I think it's perfect because I think this team's not going to win a cup next year, nor are they going to win a cup in 2 years. Now, if they do, great. That's a miracle run, bigger than 2019. But the way I see it is, let him grow with this team. Let him continue to be the voice for the Buldukes and the Deans and the Kessels, and just let him be that guy because they all seem to do fairly well under him. And in 2-3 years, when this team is ready to start competing for a cup again, and I'm not saying they're not going to make playoffs. I think this could be a playoff team next season with the right moves this summer. But I think a legitimate cup contender, they're a couple of years away from that. And I think at that point, then you reassess your coaching. I think right now, you stick with your head coach. They did it, obviously, they were great with him once he came in mid-season last year. I think you just keep riding that, see what he can do with it, and you just keep rolling. And again, you reassess. If he falters, again, it's a 2-year contract. I'm sure he's not paid as much as other coaches in the league. So, no harm, no foul. I think you could let him go, and it wouldn't break the bank for Tom Stillman. But I do think you hold on to him for a while, see what he can do, and hey, maybe in 2 years, 3 years, when this team's ready to compete for a cup, maybe at that point you're saying Bannister is the guy. That's the guy we want to go with. And, then you've, I hate using the word groomed, but you've nurtured, as Vanessa Graf, later you'll see in an interview, she does correct me on that and say nurtured. They've nurtured a coach that is a potential Stanley Cup caliber coach. So really, it's a win-win at that point. So I'm all for it. I think this is a great hire. Again, I would have loved Jim Montgomery too. I thought Sheldon Keefe was going to be the next coach, which honestly would not have excited me that much. But apparently, I guess he's sticking around in Toronto. Okay, good luck tree living in Toronto. But yeah, I think that this is the right move for the Blues right now. I don't think you need a big time coach you can hire. And plus, some of these big time coaches may not want to come here. They might want to go to a team that could win in the next couple of years. And I think the Blues are just a little bit away from that. But who knows? Maybe they have a big offseason, things change. But I do think that this was the right hire right now for the St. Louis Blues. Well, we will get into a little bit more of that with Vanessa on the other side of this break, but mostly talking prospects with our friend Vanessa Graf. She has some great insight on everything with this team, with all the prospects across the world. So on the other side of this break, we will hear from myself and Vanessa. This is Let's Go Blues Radio.
We'll return after these messages.
St. Louis hockey fans know how it takes a reliable captain and a team of hard workers to achieve major goals. As a police officer and a hockey player, realtor Mike Burgoyne would wear the C in any situation. As a leader in the home buying or selling process, Mike has surrounded himself with a team of trustworthy inspectors, lenders, and escrow officers that work together more cohesively than Hall & Oates. And as a member of many teams in his life, Mike knows the service our first responders, veterans, nurses, teachers, and yes, even you Let's Go Blues Radio listeners provide the community, so he offers special rates to those individuals. Find the value in Mike's leadership and teamwork today by emailing him at mike@strikewithmike.com or calling 314-753-4060. He'll work closely with you and only show you the homes that match your goals. That email again is mike@strikewithmike.com or call him at 314-753-4060 and succeed with your new teammate today. Well, honey, I just priced the power washing for the house, and I think we should just move and condemn this place. It'll be cheaper.
Did you try Wolf Power Washing?
Who?
Oh, I just saw this guy win the Stanley Ponder Cup Memorial Tournament and thought he was attractive, so I looked him up on social media, and it turns out he's the owner and proprietor of Wolf Power Washing. He claims he has the best prices in town.
But does he use non-flammable, non-toxic chemicals that are safe for Wolfie and our son, little Magnus?
Yes, he ensures there'll be no residue left behind, and he doesn't use any volatile vapors.
Well, this fella sounds like a dream. I just wish I knew how to contact him.
Oh, I know how. You can reach him at 314-420-5434.
314-420-5434, and his name is Joe Wolf of Wolf Power Washing?
That's right.
But how did you know his number so quickly?
I'll never tell.
Wait, what?
That's Wolf Power Washing at 314-420-5434. And make sure to tell him Let's Go Blues Radio sent you.
And now, back to Let's Go Blues Radio, the longest running St. Louis Blues podcast with Price, Ponder, and Day.
All right, we are back, and I am joined by a great friend of the show, Vanessa Graf. Vanessa is here to talk about prospects. If you have followed along with our summer shows in the past, Vanessa's been kind of a regular coming on to talk about some prospects as she follows the Thunderbirds and then has a very good grasp on all the prospects across the world for the St. Louis Blues. Vanessa, welcome back, and thanks for joining me.
Thanks. Glad to be back.
It's always good to have you back. And I want to warn our audience that we are recording this Wednesday night, and right now Edmonton and Vancouver are playing. And so if you hear one of us just go, whoa, it's because something crazy happened in the game, like what just happened as we were getting ready to start. And I look up, Vanessa had just said something about a stick going through Dakota Joshua's helmet. And I'm like, what? And then I looked up as we're getting started. And I'm like, whoa. So, yeah, that might happen again. Just want to warn you all of that.
It's Canada on Canada. What do you expect?
That's right. Yep. Yeah, anything goes. I'm trying to think of a good South Park quote with in Canada. But we'll move on. We'll move past that. Vanessa, there's a couple things that have happened with the Blues recently. I want to get into prospect talk, but I know you are well-versed with the Blues themselves, not just the prospects. Mm-hmm. Big news that came out today. The Blues did announce that they have hired Drew Bannister as their head coach to a 2-year contract. Yep. I'm sure in the open of the show, I'm going to probably say something about it. So I want to leave it to you. I will leave my opinion out. What are your thoughts on the hire of Drew Bannister?
Okay. So my thoughts in regards to Drew Bannister is to me, he's exactly what the team needs, especially as they're transitioning to a younger core. The main reason I say this is because he actually has spent the last, I think, 3 or so years with the Blues organization in Springfield, working with these young players that are now starting to come up. And I feel like this would just be a really good transition between Berube, who is a veteran-focused coach, to someone who's more of making sure that these new young players, they're being used in the proper way.
Yeah, I full on agree with you. Again, my thoughts I'm sure I'll share before, but yeah, I liked the hiring just because for me they're not going to win a Stanley Cup next year. Let's face it. I mean, if they do, it'll be a bigger miracle than 2019. And why not let these players grow with Drew Bannister? And when it's time to say, okay, this team can compete for a cup, then reevaluate your coaching. But right now, I think he's the perfect fit.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I will also like to say, I hate you, Edmonton. Stop scoring goals. But
Yeah,
no, I very much enjoy the fact that he's worked and put in the due diligence in the American Hockey League and then shown that, yes, he can handle the NHL. He needs a full year behind the bench, if not the 2 like he signed. He can easily help these guys form a really cohesive system. Besides the fact that he also holds the veterans responsible for their play. After this year, that's freaking huge.
Yes, I agree. And I also love the fact that after he was brought in as coach for the Blues, I mentioned this on the Puck podcast when I was on that I loved how almost instantly Nathan Walker came up. And I think it was because, and again, I don't have any inside information here, but I think it was because he coached him in the AHL and was like, listen, this dude he's an NHL player. You guys know it. I know it. Get him on this team.
Are you kidding me?
Did they score again?
God damn it.
Yeah, so I love it. I mean, you're a prospect person, so and we all care about our prospects. So,
oh yeah,
and I think for a Bolduc, a Dean, especially like grooming these guys a little bit for the NHL game, I think it's a great call.
Yeah, I would also say nurturing instead of grooming.
Grooming has got a negative connotation nowadays. You're right. Okay,
And I feel like it fits more with like crops, but nurturing prospects, that makes a lot more sense.
Yep.
Anyway,
okay, we'll say that. We'll say nurture. Yeah, I'll edit that in post.
Let's also not forget the fact that the Blues also re-signed Hugh McGing, a prospect. They re-signed him to a 2-year deal today, which is also a two-way. Before I not say that.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question for you. So, Hugh McGing, we did see him for a short stint here in St. Louis, 2-year, 2-way deal, $7,750K at the NHL level. Do you think that he makes the next step next season and we see him a little bit more in St. Louis?
I would say for Hugh McGing specifically, I would give him 1 more year at the AHL, potentially as a depth call-up. But I feel like after this coming year, I feel like he could push for a 4th line. For sure. But I feel like he needs 1 more year of seasoning just so he can get a really good feel. If he still maintains his point potential, cool. But that's on the low end. On the high end, he could actually just make the 4th line immediately next year, which would be pretty cool. So,
what do you like about McGing's game?
For me, McGing, it's his drive. He just has a lot of mainly what Doug Armstrong and most of the staff for the Blues are trying to focus on is people that have drive. They want to play. They want to make every game count. And that's huge. That's basically just making an identity from the ground up, which is, it's huge.
So recently, Vanessa didn't get the credit she deserves, but we're going to give it to her on this show. Vanessa actually broke some Blues news, beat Jeremy Rutherford to it. Vanessa announced that, and you can tell how here in a second, but you were the one that broke that Marcus Silvgaard and Samuel Johannesson were actually the SHL players who mentioned them on the show a couple weeks ago, that they were signed to contracts by the Blues because of the scouting of Alexander Steed. So how did you find this out before the big guns did? And any thoughts on the signings themselves?
Yeah. So initially I was just browsing on Twitter. I'm never going to call it X, Elon can go away with that. But I was just browsing on there, just looking at random stuff like I do when I wake up, and I noticed, something in Swedish about the Blues. What's going on? So did a little digging and talked to a friend I have in another Discord who is in Sweden and is from Sweden. And as soon as I saw the report, it's like, hey, buddy, is this a legit site or something? He's like, that's actually the premier sports news site in Sweden. It's like, all right, I'm keeping an eye on that. And that was just for Marcus Silfgaard, sorry. So I didn't even know yet about the Samuel Johansson stuff. That wasn't until like 10 minutes later after finding all this out. I'm like, Ayo, Doug's making moves quickly.
Yep.
But
yeah,
it was definitely surprising. Silfgaard in general, he's definitely a player that plays with a lot of gumption. I've seen a couple of videos that I was able to on social media. One where he literally got into the other team's bench to fight them off so that his other teammate could get back off because he was actually checked into the opponent's bench. Like,
those are
that
fun.
is hard. That is hard. And then Johansson, I feel like Doug was just making sure to potentially find a hidden gem that he may have just been passed up. Columbus had him from the 2019 draft in the 6th round. They didn't do shit with him. So he could just be a diamond in the rough that Doug is like, so Steen's onto something. Let's see what happens. So give him an ELC, see what happens. It's not bad.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I love the hidden gems, the diamonds in the rough that you could possibly find from other leagues. Like they tried this a couple of years ago with Joakim Lindstrom, and I liked his game. He just he didn't fit the system well. But I was like, I like the tenacity of just going out and being like, where else are there some great hockey players we could just snatch for cheap? And if this Silfgaard guy works, that's a hell of a find. You know, I feel like looking at the numbers and what I've seen of his game, there's no reason he can't fill in for a Kasperi Kapanen who's not going to be on this team. So, I'm all for those kind of moves.
Yeah, I definitely love the fact that he's undrafted, and you can look at several teams in the NHL, including one specific team that's currently in the playoffs, Boston. Some of their top named players were undrafted. Yeah. So sometimes undrafted players, they can be a huge find.
Artemi Panarin.
Yes, and Artemi Panarin. Although Tarasenko tried to warn Doug about that, but Doug, he didn't take it.
Didn't listen.
That one hurt. That one hurt a little. But no, Silfgaard, his numbers just in the SHL alone, they're phenomenal. 41 points, 51 games, plus, I believe it was a plus minus of 21.
Yeah.
Like, that's really good.
Yep. I love it. I'm all for it. And
I love what Steen's doing.
Like we talked about on the show, I mean, if this guy even turns out to be a decent third line player, the money you're paying him, well worth it. You know, worth the risk.
Yeah, for sure.
So someone else that I want to talk about, not your typical prospect that somebody might bring up, but I know you have experience covering this guy, Jeremy Biakabatuka, one of my favorite names in all of hockey. And for those that don't know, you might, if you're a sports fan, you might recognize that name. He is the son of Tim Biakabatuka, who was a Carolina Panthers running back from 1996 to 2001. And the funny thing is, you look at Jeremy and he's a monster, 6'4", big guy. Tim, and for those that follow American football, Tim, his father was only 6 foot in his heyday. So Jeremy's got height on his dad. What do you like about his game?
To be honest, this season I've not really been able to catch a lot of his stuff because he's stuck in the ECHL with the Orlando Solar Bears.
Right.
But from what I've seen just from his stats alone, he's been able to properly transitioned to the pro scene from the QMJHL, which for anyone that does know, that is the French half or French third of the Canadian Junior League. So all that fun stuff. But no, he's actually been really good. I think he's been paired on a line with another Blues prospect, Marc-Andre Gaudet. And I think that Gaudet and Biaka have been pretty, like, really good, hands down. Mind you, the only reason they're in the ECHL, to me, is there's such a logjam of players already in the Blues system that are on the defensive side that they just don't have enough room. Thank you, Vancouver, for scoring.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Yeah, my stream's a little behind on yours, and I see yours through the picture in the background.
Yeah, trust me. My work associates have noticed that too.
Yep. But no, I think Biaka has been pretty good. I kind of want to see if he can push to actually stay in the AHL, if it's possible. Otherwise, I think he's at least done pretty good of a signing. So,
yep. Yeah, I mean he was undrafted, correct?
I believe he let me check.
That's a great question.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was undrafted.
Yep. I remember when they signed him last year, my brother went to prospect camp and he even said, he goes, "There's this kid there, Biaka Batuka. Yeah, I like him. He's tough and he's a good skater." And then it was like a day later, I saw they signed him, and I was like, "Well, maybe you should be a scout for the Blues."
Maybe. It would be nice to see if he goes the same route as like Pareko, who spent a couple of years in the AHL. No, he went NCAA and AHL.
Yeah,
he did both of those. But
I was going to say, you mentioned Biaka Batuka's line mate, Marc-Andre Gaudet. That was somebody you mentioned last year to us, that somebody you were interested in seeing how they develop. What has the last year looked like for Gaudet?
For Gaudet, I think during the start of the season, I actually kept track of his stats more than most of the Blues defensemen because of how well he did in the junior playoffs his last year. For him, he's only gotten a very small amount of games in the AHL due to injury, so he was called up for a bit. But I feel like his play in the ECHL actually is warranting that he could be just a slow burner prospect. I didn't think he was that. I think he could automatically jump, so I maybe overshot myself a little. It can happen. But overall, he's definitely transitioned to the pro scene very well, even if it's third tier. So
yeah,
I would say he has a little more seasoning to do.
Yeah, I mean, he's a defenseman, right? Defensemen always take a little bit longer.
Yes, they do.
So I wouldn't say you overshot it yet. Give it maybe another year or two, and then we can have that discussion.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good one.
Yep. So another player that everyone has a lot of interest in, I believe it's the Two Guys One Cup podcast calls him Dollar Bill Dvorsky, Dalibor Dvorsky. He moved from the SHL. Had you not heard that before?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I think it was right after the draft. They started calling him Dollar Bill Dvorsky, and I'm like,
I just keep hearing
divorce
jokes
out of my
with
head.
that.
Yeah.
All I hear is divorce jokes, and it's like, guys, come on.
So yeah, Dvorsky, he divorced the SHL and went to the OHL last season. Yeah, I went there. That's right.
That was good.
He scored 45 goals, 43 assists, and 88 points in 52 games played for Sudbury Wolves last season over in the OHL. Everyone is very excited about Dvorsky. Where's he at in his progression right now as far as you've seen and what you've heard?
Well, for me, I agree with Doug's end presser of the season. Dvorsky is going to potentially get a 9-game tryout. I wholeheartedly believe that. His coaches in the CHL, from the interviews that I've actually been able to catch, they also agree he is just a mature talent and just a mature person for his age. he is just an all around. He probably should have gone a lot higher in the draft than 10th.
Yeah,
Like
I
he's
remember
got so much
during the
praise.
draft they were talking like the Blues. I remember when they were like the Blues have to be taking Dvorsky here, right? Like
Yeah.
he's clearly the best on the board, and it was like the Blues. You knew that's who they were taking. They needed offensive talent.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, he was still available at 10.
Yeah, and even watching those videos after the draft was done of like Chuck and all the scouts and everything in that hotel room just talking and talking. It's like you can tell they did a lot of homework on this kid, and he is proving them. Just he is pulling in that bet. He is that good. And
Yep, I
even
agree.
with all the drama with the SHL, and no offense to the SHL, but they're not a league that actually is good for maturing prospects. They are a top tier league that actually wants to win. But for him to actually still take that shot of moving across the Atlantic and still producing like that is huge.
Yeah.
So
and that was a monster move when it happened. And it was funny because I saw so many negative things from people that were like, oh, he couldn't cut it in the SHL, or, oh, why is he leaving mid-season? He must be a head case. And it's like, he just wants to play his best game. And I think for him, the best move at the time was go to the OHL.
Yeah. And for a majority of that time, I was actually fighting with people in the Blues Reddit Discord. Like, there is nothing wrong with this kid. And even the Swedish guy that was in the Discord is always like, SHL is not good at helping players like grow. Yeah. The tiers below them, yes, those are good. But you have to understand that as soon as Doug saw that happening, he had an immediate emergency meeting of like, is this actually going to be good for Dvorsky, or do we need to get him out of that situation?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that he did.
Yeah, I'm glad too. Because again, look at the way he prospered last year. You can't argue with the results. He stepped into the OHL.
Oh, yeah.
Put up 88 points. I mean, that's impressive.
If he actually had a full season of OHL, he could have hit 100 points potentially.
Yeah.
Like, he has that star capability. Same way the Bolduc was, especially the year before last year, putting up over 100 points and then winning the Memorial Cup.
Yep.
Like, players that can produce will produce, and you will see it.
So the other big name prospect that everyone is kind of pandering for, I think, is Jimmy Snuggerud. So last at the end of the season, there was talks like, oh, we might see Snuggerud make his NHL debut. Oh my goodness. No, wait. Oh no, he's going back for his senior year. We had our thoughts on the show. I don't want to, if you didn't hear them, I don't want to make it seem like you were either agreeing or disagreeing with us. So I will just straight up ask you, are you concerned about him going back for his senior year?
Well, quick correction. It's his junior year, actually.
Oh, yes, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Junior year. Yes.
You jumped ahead a year.
I did.
Careful with that.
Senior year, I will say this. Senior year, I would be concerned.
Right. Yeah. So initially when I first got when I heard the news on Twitter, I was like, I'm a little concerned. This is a little weird. I didn't expect that. But then as soon as I saw just the video between Doug Armstrong talking about Snuggerud, as well as Snuggerud during another interview, I think it was with the Gophers media team or something, he's basically just saying he wants to round his game out even further, especially from a leadership standpoint, now that the former captain of the Gophers has moved up to the NHL. That, to me, actually shows a lot more maturity and, at the same time, a team mentality, which is something the Blues definitely need. So for me, it's more of he's just trying to actually put his mark on his, I think it was his grandfather's alma mater.
Mm-hmm. That sounds
if I remember right. Yeah. So it's not that he's trying to do his stuff and then become a free agent. He's trying to leave an impression and honor his grandfather having gone there as well. And then once that's done, guess what? He makes it to the Frozen Four again. It's going to be here in St. Louis.
That'll
And
be
then
awesome.
as soon as that's done, guess what? He's probably going to sign a contract, and the very next day, there's going to be a blue note instead of a Gophers.
That's true. Yeah, and I'll say I'm I personally, again, I did not have any concern at all. I thought this was a kid who wants to go back. They lost on a fluke goal before getting to the Frozen Four. I mean, it's
That
like,
game hurt.
yeah, and it's like it's unfinished business. You want to, yes, you want to go to the NHL. Yes, you want to win a Stanley Cup.
Mhm.
Yes, you want to sign an 8-year deal. But right now in his college life, going out
Yeah.
on top sounds pretty damn good. And they've got
Yeah.
a good team going into next year.
They
So
do.
I don't blame him one bit for being like, for me, I look at it as he has unfinished business. He wants to go back and he wants to finish the job.
Yeah.
And I
I do
respect
have
it.
I am a little annoyed with Dylan Peterson, who was on Boston University and got him knocked out. I'm a little annoyed at him, but that's only because Snuggerud couldn't go further. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I also do love Peterson's game. He is a great two-way center. And he's
Yeah.
one of the prospects I'm glad the Blues actually signed.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that as well. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about him? Is he going to be AHL mainstay? You think he might bounce around a little bit between that and the ECHL?
I would with Dylan Peterson, where was the thing that I wrote about him? How far down was it? Here it is. Because I'd rather look at the actual notes that I've written down before. Because, come on. I wrote like a 27-page thing on all of the prospects that I could.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I got to go
And
off it.
I read through it and it's very thorough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would definitely say that. I would say for Peterson, he's going to have an entire year in the AHL, unless some of the other players that are already there in the center position, if they're able to maintain their job in AHL's training camp, he's probably going to be first line ECHL. Hopefully, he stays in the AHL and actually showcases the two-way forward that he is, because he is very good.
Yep.
I don't remember if he was line mates with Celebrini. I think he was on a different line than them.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did like how in your
it-
because you wrote this before the Blues officially signed him. I did like how you put in
I
here.
literally finished writing this the day before. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, fuck.
Yeah, you basically said in here the Blues will have to offer him a contract now if they so choose, or wait till this summer and bring the college athlete to the AHL. So they did.
Yep.
They signed him very quickly.
Yeah, I am getting a lot better at foreshadowing signings, apparently.
Yes. All right. Well, let's see. What do the Blues need this summer? We need you to foreshadow for us.
This summer. Ooh.
Jonathan Marchessault. Can you tell us
There-
now that he's going to sign here?
I'm okay. I'm not going to lie, but remember that idea I sent you about all of the podcast people and even some guests doing what are the Blues going to do? Marshall
Yeah.
was my choice for right wing for the Blues to try and
Ooh.
sign.
I
I'm
like
not
it.
going to lie. That's actually hilarious.
Well, there we go. We're
Yeah.
calling it now.
I was hoping that they would do Marchessault, or I can never say his name right. But
Sounds
I was
good to
thinking
me.
they would sign him, and then on defense they would actually sign Brett Skagey from the Hurricanes,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully trade either Falk or Krug, and just move away from that contracts, like those contracts
nice.
in general. Move away, allow Perunovic to actually get power play time that he deserves. Now that he's done a full year, he's not been super injured, which is freaking amazing, especially for his own confidence.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely laughing that you actually mentioned that.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
Yeah.
We're foreshadowing for the Blues on July 1st. Apparently, we'll see.
Yeah.
We will revisit this when that happens.
Oh yeah.
So we're talking about NHL players now. So let's go ahead and talk about some of these guys that have graduated into the NHL.
Okay. Here we go.
The first two that come to mind, of course, are the two big names that everyone's been watching: Zach Dean and Zach Bolduc. I know you watched them when they jumped into the NHL, and I know you
Yes,
saw
I
them
did.
before that. What were your impressions of them? Are you still as high on them as you were before?
I would say that Bolduc, yes, he has graduated. To me personally, he has definitely graduated to hopefully making the starting roster in at least the top 9.
Mm-hmm.
He has shown that he is very versatile, especially on left wing. And that is actually someplace where we needed depth at the 3rd position. Sorry, Sam Blay, but no, you are not
agree.
what you used to be.
Yep. You were great for us in 2019, and we will love you forever. But now it's time for you to go.
You were just not playing up to the potential that you had. And he had a really good shot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's gone.
Or
at least agree. It was just non-existent.
Yep.
In terms of Zach Dean, he is definitely a center the Blues need to keep an eye on. I feel like he needs one more year at the AHL level. Otherwise, he is going to just be a stellar performer. Because my biggest thing with him is he needs a stable place, because he did not have that for most of his AHL season. He was constantly having low amount of minutes or on the bottom 6 lineups. It took him until halfway through the season to actually get into the top 6 in the AHL, and then to the top line, and actually started really producing and getting hot right before he gets called up.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's more of he needs that seasoning time, at least one more season.
Okay. Yeah, we had Mike Boreal of NHL.com, a draft expert.
Okay.
And we asked him, I think it was actually the week after we had you on last year. And he said the same. He said something that I thought about all year as we saw Zach Dean, as you said, kind of move up through the AHL and then eventually get some time in the NHL with the Blues at the end of the year. He kind of said, Bolduc is the guy that you are going to notice even in his first couple games. He's going to get chances. He's going to score. He's going to do the things that you look for in a goal scorer. Zach Dean is the type of player that is going to do a lot of the small things. And I'm paraphrasing what Mike said, but do a lot of the small things that are great, but they don't show up on the score sheet. They're not really that noticeable, but it's just the fact that he's doing them. The coaches will watch tape and notice it and notice the hustle, but he's not going to be a fan favorite right away. It might take a little while, and that's kind of exactly what you just said.
No, and that's literally what Zach Dean did for his small stint for the duration of this season that he was up here. He did every little thing correct. I never really saw him cause give a turnover. He played a defensive center so well. I was like, hold up, this guy was a scoring machine in I think it was the QMJ, if I remember right. Yep. And it's just like, where did this defensive style come from? Hold on.
Yeah.
This guy is a definite third center for sure, minimum.
Yeah.
In the NHL. This guy knows what he's doing.
Yep.
Okay. He's cooking.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is, when we were talking about kind of, because you want to kind of compare the two that are, ever since the Barbashev trade, that the two Zachs, right? And then they faced off against each other in the queue last year. So you kind of want to do that, but we kept saying all year when Dean came up every show, we were like, yeah, he looks good, but not as good as Bolduc, but that's not really fair because that's not the type of player he is, So you go back and forth with it, but at the same time, overall, looking back at the very short stint we saw him here, I think he looked comfortable. He looked good. He just didn't get on the score sheet.
And I feel like the only reason he didn't get on the score sheet, especially for 2 specific shots, was because of NHL goalies having those ridiculous desperation saves that actually 9 times out of 10 they'll make because they're that good.
Yeah.
One in particular, doorstep. He should have had that and the freaking glove.
Yep.
Just
we were commenting about the last game of the season. It felt like Dean was going to score.
Oh yeah.
You could see the hustle. You could see he wanted it. I don't want to go all summer without an NHL goal. And yeah, and Ottinger, I want to say he had 2 or 3 shots on net, and Ottinger was being Ottinger, being great. And unfortunately, Dean has to sit on the schneid until next season. But I don't think it's going to be a full season. It's not going to be a Scott Perunovich. He will, if he gets a shot in the NHL next year, I do think we'll see him get his first goal.
I think if we make the playoffs next year, yes, he will be called up and definitely be used in a rotation. But if somehow we don't, or if we're fighting for a wild card, we may not bring him up just to make sure that he still maintains a good composure for the AHL. But I do think that a safe bet would be to have him stay in the AHL as their top center.
Yep.
And see where that goes. If you can actually see a full season of him with top line minutes and see where he progresses, then the very next season, easily bring him up and being a third center and replacing Hayes. Unless they can replace him this summer, which I
That'd
hope.
be nice. I think we all are. I think Armstrong is too. Like, oh, I need to replace this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Woo. Not who we thought we were getting. Holy cow.
No.
So a couple more guys I want to mention. Another one is a guy that we talked about the last 2 years, Matt Kessel. A guy that I was impressed with when he stepped into the AHL in the playoffs, looked very comfortable from what I saw. And then he came up to the NHL, exact same thing. I was like, this dude looks like a veteran of 10 seasons. Big fan of Matthew Kessel. Glad he got his contract extension midseason. What are your thoughts on Matthew Kessel as a full-time St. Louis Blue?
Matthew Kessel is the epitome of a graduated player from the AHL to the NHL. This is a defenseman. No, he's not going to score a lot. He's not going to be a point producer. This is a young shutdown defenseman who actually plays like an NHL defenseman should. This guy has got the gumption to go all the way with this. I especially love his hitting. It is just great timing on all of them.
Yep.
I believe it was, I think he was the one that actually hit Connor Bedard in just a perfect hit up when they were playing against Chicago. Man, that clip was so good.
That's one of my favorites of the year.
that made my entire day when I was watching that.
Yep.
It's like,
me too.
Yep. Sit down, Bedard. You're done.
Well, that's what I love is that these guys, you kind of catch yourself marveling. Even NHL players.
Never mind, I'm wrong. It was Tyler Tucker.
Oh, it was Tyler Tucker. You're right.
I keep forgetting both of them because they're both really good at hitting.
Yes, they are both good hitters.
I could have sworn it was Kessel that actually hit him, but it was Tyler
That's
Tucker.
right. It was.
And
Tucker.
I actually wrote that in the notes.
Kessel did have a decent hit this year, though, and I can't remember who was against now. I thought it was Bedard, but you're right. It was Tucker. Either way, I did love how, in talking about Tyler Tucker, and same thing with Kessel, it's easy for these young defensemen to marvel at some of the talent in the NHL, and you can just kind of see them kind of take a step back, and it's like, oh boy, you've got something to learn. Like, you can't just let these dudes dangle you. I never saw that with Kessel. He had a very rough stretch, I thought, right before Falk came back, and then they called him back shortly after. Even in his roughest game, I was like, he doesn't look intimidated. He just looks a little out of place. And that's what you want to see with a young defenseman.
Well, I actually won't say that he looked out of place. I actually think he made Torrey Krug look in place a lot of the season.
Possibly.
Like, Matt Kessel actually made Torrey Krug somewhat better defensively, which is actually a huge surprise and much better for the Blues. I still want to trade him, but made his case to stay a little bit stronger, having a much better partner than Justin Falk. Sorry, those two should not be partners on a D line.
I never understand that.
They do not match. They don't.
I don't get it. I really don't get that. It's never worked, yet they keep going back to it. And the minute they put Krug with Kessel, Krug looked like a capable NHL defenseman, like you said, and Kessel was great. So it's like, keep those two together. And then Falk comes back, and instantly it's Falk Krug. And I'm like, stop it.
Yep. And it's like, I understand the concept of having to play the players that are making the most money, but Jesus fuck, don't put them with the wrong players for their partner.
I agree. 100%. All right, one more player I want to ask you about on the current roster, Jake Neighbors. Another player who it's funny because when David Perron was let go, the first thing I said on the show was I feel like they passed on Perron thinking Neighbors would pick up that production. And then I remember he scored in the series, the season opener against Columbus. And it was like, oh my God. And then he went goalless for like 15 games. Yeah. And I think he even went back down to the AHL for a while. And it was like, oh boy. Well, then next year, this past season, holy shit, 27 goals in 77 games played. He was a force in front of the net. One of the best players the Blues have had in front of the net in a couple of years. I fell in love with this kid. I went out and got his jersey. That's how crazy in love I fell in love with him. So your thoughts on Jake Neighbors and the way he has progressed in his career?
Well, if I don't make this joke, I'm gonna regret it. But like a good neighbor, Jake's here to stay.
Yeah, he is.
This is a player who has shown he's basically a combination of Keith Tkachuk in front of the net with David Perron scoring. That is lethal.
Yeah.
That is very lethal. Besides the fact that he literally forced his way onto the first line as well.
Yeah.
He's just been amazing. He has been the brightest part of the entire season for the Blues.
Yeah, I think
he's graduated as well to just staying in the NHL. There is no reason for him to go to the AHL anymore. Unless it's for conditioning after an injury, but that's
a whole other
knock on wood. Not for that to happen.
No, I agree. You think so? 77 games played, missed the last 5 because of injury. Do you think he would have gotten 3 more goals to get to 30 if he would have stayed in the lineup?
I actually do.
I do too.
I believe he would have hit the 30 mark, and I think that he will easily do that for sure next year. Hell, I think he'll do it the next 3 seasons for sure. He's just that good of a shot and that good of a mentality.
Yeah.
I'll also say he's really good at interviews.
Yeah, he is actually. That's a good call. He's got the personality.
Yeah, he definitely does. And I love that about him.
Yeah, it's funny because I think about like players, and I did this a lot back in the day, and a couple of these guys have graduated into it. I think about players when they are in interviews. I'm like, would this guy be on good on TV after they retire? And I'll admit I missed it on Jeremy Roenick. I thought he was going to be great, but he was fucking terrible. But yeah, you think about it. Yeah, right. And we all knew Bissonnette, he was going to be fantastic. But yeah, I look at a guy like Jake Neighbors and on baseball, I think of Adam Wainwright, and I'm like, these guys would be great on TV. Hopefully for Jake Neighbors, we don't have to worry about that until he's 45 because he's had 10 Stanley Cups with the Blues, but we'll see.
Yeah. No, and I would say for Neighbors' sophomore season, he blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
Like,
agree.
I can't really count his 9-game stint. That really doesn't seem like a sophomore season to me because it's just a tryout, basically.
Yep.
But the last season, that was his actual freshman season. Still putting up 10 points in 43. That's kind of okay. His plus minus was terrible that year, and that's why he went down to Springfield because he really needed to round out his actual game.
Yeah.
And holy shit, did he round it out.
Yeah, he came back like a machine last year. I was so impressed with him. Vanessa, we're gonna wrap up here in a little bit, so I want to go ahead and get your thoughts. And I'm gonna give you a little time. I'll vamp for you. If there's anyone else you want to discuss, go ahead and think about that now, and I'll give you the last minute here to talk. But I want to thank you for coming on, and want to thank your adorable cat behind you. My goodness, that is a cute cat. What's his or her name?
Her name is Harley Quinn.
Are you kidding me? Oh my
Yep.
God. Did we just become best friends?
Probably.
I love that name. That is fantastic. I'm a big gaming nerd, so I've been playing the Kill the Justice League game. So playing as Harley Quinn has been a lot of fun.
Yep. She is the exact personality of Harley Quinn as well. So it just
Oh,
makes perfect sense.
all right. Well, she's a former psychiatrist, huh?
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
You know she's judging you because all cats judge.
Oh, she always is. Or she
Mhm.
just wanted me to make sure that she's getting fed, even though we
That
have it on an automatic dispenser.
Oh yeah, that's all
Yeah.
cats do.
She still
My
yells
God.
at me for that.
Oh yeah. All right. So yeah, I think I've given you enough time to think about it. Any other
Yeah.
players that you want to discuss in the pipeline?
Yeah, for sure. So one player that I do want to mention, I feel like the Blues need to actually who was it? I think they needed to step away from. Where did the goalies go on my list? Fuck.
Will Cranley?
Yeah, thank you. Will Cranley, I think the Blues need to call it on that one. It's just not working out, in my opinion.
So he was mostly
Will
with the
Cranley.
Utah Grizzlies, right? He never even did he play? He played a little bit in the AHL, right?
No, he didn't this year. He actually was part of Reading Royals, which I'm not sure where they're located at, but he started there and then played with Utah. Or it might have been the reverse, but overall, he just could not put together a solid season again. Like, he was good for one game after he finished in the juniors, but he's not progressed that much. I feel like it would be safer to pass on from him, maybe send him to a team that needs goalie depth like Columbus, give them the chance to see if he can do better. But I would move on from him.
Will
I will.
Cranley, drafted by the Blues, 6th round, 163rd overall in the 2020 NHL draft.
Yep. I will.
And that's a fun, interesting thing about the 2020 draft is people said back then they were concerned because seasons didn't finish. You couldn't get the scouting right because of everything that happened with COVID. And they said it'll be interesting to see what happens with some of these players that weren't fully drafted proper or scouted properly. And maybe that's what we're seeing with Will Cranley here. Maybe he was picked and it was, if we would have had full scouting on this guy, maybe he doesn't get picked.
Yeah, no, it's possible. I will take back what I said about one goalie last summer. I said that Colton Ellis may be a bust. I am eating my foot with that one. He has definitely shown that he can actually do what he needs to do in both the AHL and the ECHL. So I am sorry, Colton Ellis. You're fine. You are perfectly fine to stay in our system. I'm sorry.
Clearly, he listened to this show last summer and said, I'm going to prove that Vanessa chick wrong.
Yeah, sure feels like that. I would also say
Colton Ellis, drafted by the Blues. Sorry, I'm just going to follow up.
No,
with
you're good.
Draft remarks. 3rd round, 93rd overall in the 2019 NHL draft.
Yep. Another one who we never actually got to see play during the 2022-23 season because of a leg injury. Tanner Dickinson came out of the Sioux Greyhound in the junior league or in the Canadian juniors. Played for AHL and the ECHL. Definitely actually showed that injury did not slow him down. He was able to progress in the professional scene, which I'm very happy for because I was really worried because of that injury. He could have been just completely just destroyed on progress. And I'm glad that he actually was good.
Great. Yeah, Tanner Dickinson, drafted by the Blues, 4th round, 119 overall in 2020.
Yeah, thankfully that's one 2020 that actually is working out.
Right. Yep. No, that is good. That would be an interesting expose for somebody to do. Look back now at the 2020 draft and see which prospects have fallen off and which have taken off.
Oh, yeah. There is one more, if I can find the name, because I cannot remember it.
I'll just take a shot in the
Here
dark.
it is. Simon Robertson. just won the championship in the SHL this season, which I didn't even have on the bingo card at all, but signed also during the summer.
Yep.
And you can thank Steen for the influx of Swedes and for the new alternate logo of the Blues where it's the Swedish crowns inside the blue note.
Yes.
I was loving that when I saw that meme.
That was awesome.
But no, this guy played both in Bjarnes IF, which is their second tier underneath Skellefteå Ike. I cannot pronounce these correctly. I'm not good with Swedish. But he played very well, especially in the SHL, where he played a majority of the time. He actually played with, I believe it was Stenberg or Lindstein for Brynäs IF when he was loaned to them. So he's actually played with one of the other Blues prospects in Sweden that signed. But
interesting.
He was actually really good. And I'll end on this. Blues fans can actually potentially see him play in the championship hockey league during September when the Swedish team that he's on, Skellefteå Ak, they'll actually be in the tournament. They qualify.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So that'll be the one Blues player that fans can actually watch when the Champion League comes around. That's
nice.
Gonna be fun.
Yeah, that will be great. Looking forward to that.
It's rare to see European tournaments, and they do it all free on YouTube. So it's like, all right, hockey comes early. Let's go.
That's amazing. I will definitely. Yeah, we'll be following that for sure. I didn't know that, so that is great news to have. Simon Robertson, by the way, 3rd round, 71st overall, 2021 NHL entry draft, and as Vanessa said, was also one of the signings this summer. One of the many Swedish people the Blues have signed. So very exciting to see where they go. Vanessa, always fun having you. You know, we have you on typically once a year. Sometimes you come on as a fill-in co-host. I'm sure we'll have that again. Thank you very much for your insight. Always good talking with you. How can people find you on social media and interact with you?
Yeah, so they can find me on, yes, it's called X. Hate you, Elon. But you can find me on Twitter at vrain91, and I usually do a lot of my hockey stuff posting on that. I may start using Thread. Don't know yet. We'll see what happens. But yeah,
I keep telling myself to switch to Thread because I actually saw something the other day that said that they have more users now than Twitter does, and it's getting used more. And so I'm like, I need to make the switch because every time I go over there and post anything, I get a bunch of likes, and I'm like, clearly people are paying attention, but it's just, I guess, in our minds, it's ingrained. Like, I need to. I need to go on Twitter.
Yeah, it's been there for so long. I do also have Blue Sky, but there's just not enough outreach for that yet, so I'll leave that alone.
Yeah, Kurt Price is on there, and he said that right now there is pretty much zero Blues content, and he's like, we need to go over there and own it, and I'm like, yeah, it's a lot of work.
No, I'll beat you
good.
to it, Kurt. Don't worry, I'll beat you.
There you go. There you go.
Don't tell him I said that.
Of course. Oh, well, he's gonna hear it. You're on the air, Vanessa.
That's fair. I didn't think that one.
All right. Well, Vanessa, again, thank you very much for joining us, and we really appreciate your insight into the Blues prospects. We will definitely be in touch with you over the years and keep checking on these players and see how they do.
Yeah, for sure. No, and hopefully a lot of these they'll pan out really well. I'm definitely hoping to see Dvorsky lift a cup. Ooh, that'd be fun.
Oh, heck yes. Now that is a note to end on. Thank you, Vanessa. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good night, y'all.
Well, thanks again to Vanessa Graf for joining us yet again. Again, friend of the show. She's been on many times, and we love having her. So, and a listener of the show as well, which is always awesome. So, thank you, Vanessa. Always fun catching up with you. Summer rolls on next week, folks. Bill and I are actually going to interview, and we're excited about this. We haven't done it yet, but next week we are going to have Taylor Dixon on, and you might ask, who the hell is Taylor Dixon? That's the creator of Puck Doku. The game that Bill and I love to play. If you haven't played it, it's awesome. Just a fun game to play daily. Puckdoku.com. And yeah, so Bill and I, we actually share our scores with each other and often our picks too every single day. So we are daily players. We're obsessed. So we are very excited to actually have Taylor come on, talk about the game itself, and we are even going to play a Let's Go Blues Radio version of Puck Doku. So see how Taylor does with that. But very excited. That'll be next week, so make sure you tune in for that one. Well, that'll do it, folks. Support for Let's Go Blues Radio is brought to you in part by Mike Burgoyne with Rio Brokerage Realty. Email him at mike@strikewithmike.com today for all your home buying and selling needs. That's mike@strikewithmike.com. And by our newest and most awesome sponsor, friend of mine, Joe Wolf. Mike Burgoyne's a great friend, too. I'm, of course, kidding. Love that guy. Wolf Power Washing, St. Louis's premier power washing company with the best rates in town. Call Joe Wolf at 314-420-5434 and get the best looking and greatest power washer in the area. That's 314-420-5434. That will do it for episode 30 of season 13 of the original St. Louis Blues hockey podcast, Let's Go Blues Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a great week, everyone. For Kurt Price and Bill Day and producer Austin, I'm Jeff Ponder, and I will talk with you next week. This was Let's Go Blues Radio. Until next time, everyone, let's go Blues and win some game, Cardinals. Jeez.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
You thought I was going to say, son of a bitch, didn't you?